Have y'all seen that fan cast of Paul Mescal and Io Debris as Gus and January for Beach Read? If they are not Gus and January in the new Beach Read movie, I just won't go. I just won't go. I'm also lying, by the way. Hey y'all, what's up? I'm Sabrina and welcome back to my book nook. So it's been another hot minute since I did a video and since I did a book review actually. But I've just kind of had like a really crazy busy past month. I'm actually in the middle of AP exams right now. I just took my AP Lit exam a couple hours ago and I think that's kind of why I wanted to do a book review because like I don't know, I'm just in that literature analysis mode, I guess. I also had my prom last Friday and got my nails done for it. Now that I have like new nails on, I just feel like a whole new person really. And I also like tried dyeing my hair like this like auburn brown color, but it just ended up coming out like kind of red. Like you can't see it on camera right now, but it's red. I am a ginger basically, except the color also fades really fast. I've only had it for like a week and it's already faded, which is really disappointing. But anyways, we're gonna get into a new book review today for the new Emily Henry book. I finished it like a couple days ago, not in one sitting but two. But also just like look at this cover, you guys. This is gorgeous. But yeah, before I get started, I just kind of want to break down how my book reviews work. My book reviews are broken down into 4 parts. Parts 1 and 4 are spoiler free, but parts 2 and 3 are not. If you don't want spoilers, don't watch parts 2 and 3 basically. Part 1, I give my beginning thoughts and opinions as well as a brief plot summary. Part 2, I share my thoughts on plot, writing, and kind of other elements like that. Part 3, characters and relationships. And Part 4, I give my final thoughts and opinion as well as an overall rating and answering the question, is this a must read? Okay? Okay, so let's get into the book review then. Part 1, beginning thoughts and opinions. For starters, guys, I was literally so hyped for this book. I actually started crying when I finished it because I was like, now I have nothing to look forward to in my life anymore. But also, I would just like to mention that I got this book for only $15 and it is worth $30. So I got it for like half the price. Basically, I had to do honestly a lot of maneuvering, or not a lot, but there's just a lot going on. For starters, when you get the book online, it's like 10% off, and I'm a Barnes & Noble premium member, so that's like another 10% off when you apply the membership. And also there was like a coupon going around where if you pre-ordered a book you would get 25% off that, and then I also had another $5 in rewards, and basically all of that added up to about 15 bucks plus free shipping. So I got this book for only $15, which I'm kind of proud of. Okay guys, I'm double majoring in econ and honestly I feel like they should like give me credit for this. First day of college, like I'm gonna walk into my econ 101 class, tell them about this deal I got, and tell them about all the shit I did to get this book for half off, and I feel like they should just give me my degree right then and there. But yeah, anyways, to be honest with you guys, I've kind of been avoiding romance books recently because surprisingly, getting dumped doesn't really like put you in the mood for romance books, you know. But I think now I've kind of reached a point where like reading romance books doesn't make me want to jump off a bridge anymore. And you know, new Emily Henry book, I'm not gonna read the new Emily Henry book. Did I still cry at this book much more than I probably should have? Yes I did. And was it a good reason to be crying? No it was not. But I don't want to give too much away, so yeah, let's just give it a little brief plot summary and move on to part 2. So basically, funny story is about this woman named Daphne who is in a bit of a weird living situation. Basically, she's living with her ex-fiance's new fiance's ex-boyfriend. And after having gotten dumped by her ex-fiance, Daphne is pretty much ready to leave town, but she's staying because she needs to find a new job and just kind of sort out her things. Anyways, Miles, her roommate, and her strike up an unlikely friendship that may involve a little fake dating, a little bit of small town adventures, and a lot of tension. So moving on to part 2, thoughts on plot, writing, and other elements. To preface this, I personally don't think Emily Henry could ever let me down at this point. Like, every single one of her books I've loved, and even if I haven't like loved them, I at least very much like thoroughly enjoyed them. But this book, I will admit, I was a little bit scared for, right? After all, if you have high expectations for an author, they're probably gonna release a bit of a flop one day, right? Wrong, because Emily Henry just does it again. She just has this like very distinct style of romance. It's like this witty, clever, kind of funny without being obnoxious conversational tone of writing. And she also writes like very, I think, emotionally intelligent men who are able to communicate their feelings and are also mature enough to recognize their own flaws. And she also just fleshes out her storylines and her characters so that there exists something beyond the romance in her stories to ground them, you know? I think she like takes the romance genre and just kind of elevates it to make it slightly more like realistic, while also pushing this new style of romantic leads. And I've been hearing a little bit of discourse on whether or not Emily Henry should even be considered a romance writer. You know, some people like to argue she writes like women's fiction, she's not really a romance author, which is like, I understand where they're coming from, but also, have you ever considered that maybe she's just like a good author? Maybe she's just good at writing romance and also writing characters and like setting and fleshing them out and giving them life. I understand the whole women's fiction aspects, and you know, I'm not very well versed in this discourse. It's not even really discourse, to be honest, but I just feel like she's just a really good author. When you think of like typical romance book male love interest, they're always like, I don't know, something like mafia bosses or boring CEOs, you know, and even in like romantic comedy genres, I feel like there's always just something lacking with the male love interest, you know. But I never feel that way about Emily Henry, because the way that Emily Henry writes men, before I ramble on about what I liked about this book specifically, let me begin with some criticisms that I had, because I actually did have some, but the first being just like kind of the unrealisticness of some things. And before y'all come for my throat, yes, I know romance books are not meant to be realistic, they're not meant to be entirely believable, but like I just said earlier, one of the reasons I kind of love Emily Henry is her romance stories do feel a little bit more realistic, right? The banter between her characters, like the chemistry is there, you know, it's funny and it's lively, but it doesn't border like fake and superficial, you know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it. Like other romance books, I feel like kind of have this tinge of just like writing what you think should happen, writing down exactly what each person would say to make it the most perfect outcome possible. But I feel like with Emily Henry, there's this smooth back and forth between the characters and in the dialogue always. There's always something more that grounds them as a character and makes them seem believable as a human being. And I don't know if that rambling makes sense, but that's one of the reasons that I love Emily Henry. And so the fact that Daphne and Miles got together within like months of them being dumped from like long-term relationships as adults, I found that a little unrealistic. They were both with their respective partners for like years, and you're telling me it took them like a month or two to just get over them and get with somebody new? Babes, that's not healthy. Like, and you know, maybe I'm just like projecting here, but personally I think breakups, especially over long-term relationships, usually take longer than that to get over. And I do think definitely it was kind of a bold move of Emily Henry to begin the story like a month after the kind of fiasco that set story into motion, right? And I do think it was interesting how they began living with each other. They had already been living with each other for about a month by this point, but the romance doesn't start until after a month or two. And it just kind of, you know, rolled into something more natural. And I find that, you know, a lot more intriguing than some of her other books where you see the beginning of the relationships in her other books, but in this one you don't. Another bone I kind of had to pick with the book was that, like, the main conflict preventing Daphne and Miles from getting together wasn't the fact that both of them were just in long-term committed relationships, but rather because they didn't want to ruin their friendship and didn't want to make things awkward. And that just seemed a little silly to me, because I was like, nothing's stopping you from just expanding the timeline a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe give them another 2-ish months, right? Maybe they've been living together for 3 months and then that happens. I feel like that feels more like realistic and gives both Daphne and Miles time to grieve their relationships and kind of move forward, and I feel like it would have made their relationship feel a little less rushed. Also, oh my god, another really small criticism I had, it's actually so incredibly tiny, is there is a section in the book where Julia just like leaves. She just leaves, nobody says where she's going, she doesn't say where she's going, and when she comes back, she doesn't say where she's been. They're just like, oh my god, you're back. And she's like, yeah, like, I just came back. I'm like, where did you fucking go? And I thought I was literally tripping because I was like, where the fuck is Julia? So I went back and I reread that part before she left, like 3 times. She doesn't say she's leaving, she doesn't say where she's going. And I'm just like, that just felt so, like, out of place. It annoyed me so much because I was like, you could have just added a line saying, oh, I'm staying at my friend's house, oh, I'm going to da 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 da. Like, it wouldn't have been that hard. And I'm just like, what was the point? But other than those, I didn't really have any other criticisms of the book. I honestly think this is honestly one of my more like favorites of her works, I would say, so far. I honestly love that in the end Daphne chose to stay in Michigan, not entirely because of Miles, but also because she loves the town. Something I love about Emily Henry is the way that she writes settings and the way that she writes like these towns that the characters are staying in, because it's clear that there's this kind of like sweet, sentimental, almost devoted way she writes about these seemingly quietly like beautiful places. Reading about this town and its inhabitants, I just feel like this warm hug. I also just want to say, like, the last line in the story, oh, so good, so fucking good. I literally screamed when I read it. Anyways, moving on to part 3, characters and relationships. So starting off with Daphne, something I always find kind of fascinating in romance books is like the protagonists are always this archetype of, you know, they're just so unaware of like the effect they have on people. But with Daphne, I honestly kind of believe it. Most of the time I'm just annoyed because I'm like, how do you not know that you're fucking beautiful? And maybe it's just because I just reread the selection, so that trope is heavy on my mind. But I think with Daphne, the reason I'm not so entirely annoyed by it and kind of believe it is because I feel like it stems from genuine insecurities and issues that she's dealing with, you know, rather than just her not knowing she's beautiful or something like that, you know. And I just, again, I really love how Emily Henry fleshes out her characters, and not only with backstories but also with their motivations and priorities. And, you know, by the end, Daphne was realizing she needed to prioritize herself and her friendships, and that there's more to life than just being part of a relationship, which I think is a good thing to live by. And also, you know, she's just a bit of a boring gal who likes to read, and I literally relate to that so hard. Shout out to my other girls who don't do anything. Moving on to Miles, he's my baby girl. He's literally my baby girl. I don't care that he's a full-grown man, but he's my baby girl. And guys, I know Paul Mescal might be Gus, but what if he plays Miles too? Actually, what if he plays every single Emily Henry love interest? And Io Debris obviously also plays every single Emily Henry protagonist. I like reading about genuinely like nice men that aren't just like a poorly written stereotype of a golden retriever boy. Oh my god, if I have to hear the words golden retriever men one more time, I will literally shoot myself. But I feel like Miles is nice without it being like in an infantilizing way, ignoring the fact that I literally just called him my baby girl 5 seconds ago. Also, when Miles and Daphne were fighting in the car, I literally started sobbing. I was sobbing because he said something like, "You're my best friend and I love you." I lost it. I fucking lost it. Because there's just something about like relationships where they're best friends before romantic interest for that I love so much. I think the best romances in general, honestly, are ones that have a foundation of friendship first. Like, if I don't believe that these two people could be best friends, why are y'all dating? Why are y'all in love? What do you talk about? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, maybe enemies to lovers just like doesn't do it for me anymore. Maybe I'm a friends to lovers gal now. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Also, I saw somebody say Miles is supposed to be Nick Miller from New Girl. I don't like New Girl, if I'm being honest. I watched one season of it and I did not think it was that funny. So I personally will not be participating in that vision. But I just want to throw that out there for maybe people who are Nick Miller fans. Anyways, moving on to part 4, final thoughts and opinions. In conclusion, overall, fantastic job by Emily Henry as usual. I think if I were to rank her books right now, I would do number 1, Book Lovers, always. Number 2, Funny Story. Number 3, Beach Read. Number 4, Happy Place. And number 5, People We Meet on Vacation. But this book was delightfully funny, clever, witty. The very premise of it is kind of silly, but I feel like Emily Henry manages to deliver it with this sincere and sweet depiction of love. Her romances are always fleshed out and her settings are very sweetly described with kind of this sincere devotion that most romance authors often neglect. Her characters and their chemistry obviously feel so incredibly natural and realistic, and nothing feels forced. The banter between her characters are always on point. Overall, I rated it a 4.8 out of 5 stars. I wanted to do 4.9, but I was worried I might have a recency bias, so I decided to lower it by a tiny amount to reflect the true value. Anyways, is this a must read? What do you think? After everything I've said, what do you think? Of course it is. It's always a must read if it's Emily Henry. Absolutely 100%, no question about it. But basically, if you haven't read this book yet, go read this book. I think that is everything I wanted to talk about. If you watched this entire video, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe. Only if you want to though, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.